Hello, this is Mike Diercksen from Proactive, and you are listening to the Building Byte podcast. Tune in as we spotlight our guest, Adam Denno, product specialist of the DIG, or Default Insurance Group, from Willis Towers Watson. Our episode is focused on yielding positive results in the industry through qualitative and quantitative data use. For more information on this episode and others, please check out the Building Byte at www.buildwithproactive.com.
Welcome to the Building Byte podcast, a podcast for construction contractors, owners, and insurance professionals where you can hear from the experts about key topics to help you be successful. I'm Chris Epps, one of the show's hosts and a senior director at Proactive, and I'm joined here with my co-host Mike Diercksen, our senior consultant of innovation and content solutions. Today we're taking a bite out of insurance with our guest, a leader in the insurance industry, Adam Denno. Adam is a product specialist in the Willis Towers Watson Default Insurance Group. Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on here today, guys. Looking forward to having these discussions.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to it as well. Mike, how about you? How are you this afternoon?
Doing good, Chris. It's great to have Adam on. I know we were connecting on Colorado in the past. I'm excited to talk with him a little bit today about both construction and maybe getting some food tips for next time I'm out there.
Perfect. Well, today we're looking into the future with our topic, yielding positive results in the industry through qualitative and quantitative data. So it's great to have you on the show today, Adam. And before we dive into our main topic, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are with Willis now?
Sure, absolutely. Well, I've been doing more analytics now for close to 2 decades, and I don't mean to age myself, but it's been a while. Specific to construction, going on a little over 15 years. And joined Willis about 5 years ago. Prior to that, worked with a large general contractor and then did a foray into some technology into the space and consulted with firms in how to really leverage that information that they had to make more informed decisions. So as we sit here today, I'm a member of the Default Insurance Group within Willis Towers Watson, where we focus on sub-default insurance and really understanding where the risks of subcontractor default go in the marketplace.
Yeah, Adam, that's something interesting. I think it's something that not everyone has a designated group like that. And so for our audience who maybe isn't as familiar with the DIG, love a good acronym, but the DIG group, the Default Insurance Group over at Willis, can you give us maybe a little more in-depth about what it is that the team is looking to achieve and how you're doing that?
Absolutely. So our Default Insurance Group, Center of Excellence within Willis Towers Watson, really focuses specifically on sub-default insurance. And sub-default insurance is a comprehensive catastrophic default program geared for general contractors. And over the years, it was really focused on some larger, more sophisticated, if you will, general contractors. But what we've seen is that sophistication doesn't simply belong to larger contractors. Some small and mid-sized firms over the years are really taking a critical look into assessing the capabilities of their subcontractors. And in doing so, they're able to look at procuring some sub-default insurance. And sub-default insurance is really an actively managed line of insurance where you need to have some critical insights on policy terms, conditions. Administration is critical, but also understanding the risks that you're assuming in the program. And that's where I come in. We actually have a team of 9 dedicated individuals focusing on everything from administration to claims, terms and condition review and analysis, and really understanding where that contractor's risks lie, not just on the specific project, but through a whole program. So I help to develop some more insightful, predictive, and quantitative models to understand that program is in place and it's uniquely tailored for the contractors themselves. It's no longer an off-the-shelf solution. It has to be really tailored to each general contractor's specific needs.
And I love that, Adam, because you bring such a unique blend of experience to this conversation today. The topic being about qualitative and quantitative data. And you mentioned yourself, 20 years in the analytics business trying to digest all of that. So our audience, mostly made up of construction, insurance, and technology professionals, it seems to be a perfect blend with your experience at Willis as well as in the analytics to pull that together for the market. So how do you think that has shaped and how do you think the market has grown over the last several years with regard to that data and implementing that?
Absolutely. Well, it's more imperative now than it ever has been. As we sit here, we're all keenly aware of the impacts of how the global economy can impact even local jobs, looking at access to quality labor, supplies, materials, and understanding how that really impacts the success of that project moving forward. To borrow a quote from one of the greats, and it's probably been used ad nauseum, but Wayne Gretzky once mentioned that in order to be successful, you skate to where the puck's going to be, not to where it's been. And really, that's our mindset here, is taking the information that we have with over $110 billion of subcontractor enrollment, default trends. We constantly conduct market surveys, but we also leverage the information that we have holistically throughout Willis Towers Watson, as well as other sources in the market, whether it's OECD, Census, just to name a few, Dodge. There's a lot of access points to information in the marketplace. So what we try to do is really gather that information so that we can transform it from simply an informative tool to an insightful tool. And we can really start to predict where the market's going. And as we've stated, we've never been at a more risk-filled environment, but we've never also been at a more interesting environment in construction, insurance, and finance when it comes to how the evolution of technology can really impact our decisions moving forward. But it goes beyond that. We have to take that information, utilize that data, have confidence in our data to really start generating some insightful models.
Yeah, totally agree, Adam. There's a ton of data out there and a lot of big data, and interpretation and making it useful is certainly key. Building on that, it feels like everybody staying home due to COVID has also forced the industry to look for alternative solutions using that data and through technology. It looks like, some of those are here to stay. As a product specialist, you get a great up-close look at how GCs are kind of maximizing and building on that development. So what are some of the more common and frequent issues you guys are seeing? And as a broker in your unique position, how do you help them?
Well, it has been. It's been terribly interesting. And as Michael mentioned earlier, over the years, I've been involved with developing risk models for organizations within construction, credit agencies, brokers within the industry. And we're starting to really see how over the last 6 to 12 months, the evolution of technology has really ramped up. Again, we've never been at a more interesting convergence of technology, data, and really implementing that data to make decisions than we've ever been. And I don't see that slowing down. As a result of what we all endured over the pandemic time, we started to have more remote job sites. We started to have an understanding of how to utilize modeling, predictive, quantitative models to really access data and generate some information. So a lot of that technology, whether it's through hardware technology, software platforms, integration, whether it's through many different aspects, a lot of it's here to stay. And we're seeing some really interesting things in the combination of technology and how it's increasing efficiency through certain tasks. At Willis, one of the main reasons I joined the team here is that we do consider ourselves the analytical broker, and we have access to significant resources globally to understand trends that are impacting our clients. And one of those trends is that evolving data set through technology that we're gathering. We are now able to qualify subcontractors in a much more keen manner. We were able to access labor market trends through technology. We're also able to access, there's an evolving market space that I'm seeing our clients do and the markets adhere to, and that is access to quality of construction put in place. Quality of construction put in place is really one of the, I think, gaps in the space that we're starting to see some real impact from. When a contractor then goes in and performs their work, again, we're seeing critical components within supply and materials be delayed. Some of those supplies and materials aren't to the quality and condition that were expected, but they have to be put on job sites because the next shipment of those supplies and materials is some time out. We're also seeing some labor that isn't necessarily up to snuff, really coming onto these job sites and installing these materials. So one of the critical components is that quality of construction put in place. It's always been a concern throughout the industry construction and insurance absolute, in that if we could simply track water intrusion, moisture intrusion on projects. In insurance, it's often seen as one of the dirty words. It's dihydrogen oxide. And breaking it down, it's water intrusion because it leads to mold, rework, a lot of danger and safety issues on the job. So that concept and that issue has been around for decades. But we're actually starting to see some technology that are able to track conditions of the construction projects, not simply during construction, but through construction and then over into owners' hands. So the evolution that we're seeing in that technology is now catching up with the needs of our space is really interesting. Now what we do is we say, well, how do we take that information, integrate it into the modeling that we've had to have these decisions for risk and insurance placement and understanding where the company should not have a blind spot moving forward. So that's really the critical juncture that I see now, is taking all of these emerging technologies, the data that they're gathering, and making sense of it all. Because somewhere within that puzzle is the answer. And that's really what we do here at Willis. We work with our clients, and it's not just understanding whether or not there's a new project to pursue. It's understanding where the risk is on that project and all the other projects you've done, and how you can position that next project to have less risk, so that ultimately you have a very successful, profitable, and safe project at the end.
Yeah, you touched on a lot there that it kind of hits home for me based on my own career in construction. Like seeing that exponential ramp up in availability of data and technology over the past even just 5 years in an industry that has historically been, I would say, characterized as slow to change and slow to accept some of those technologies is pretty remarkable. And it's great that we have all of these resources and this technology available now, but with that, it requires significant buy-in from GCs and their firms to really realize the potential of using that data and that technology. Do you guys pretty much see it the same way?
We do. And, there's a point now where we talked a little bit about at the onset of this discussion, and that is leading firms that are investing in resources. And it's no longer just the larger general contractors that are seeing the impacts that access to accurate data can have on their businesses. It are these really agile firms, as I like to put it. And we're seeing a lot of agility within the small middle market as well as large firms. We see it as more of a three-legged stool, and that is, it is investment and commitment to the programs that you have to gather the information. Obviously, you need something where that data can be managed. It can be stored so that you can have some actionable insights from that. So the programs are not just third-party solutions that we're seeing, but some firms are investing in internal solutions specific to their needs. But it's also the processes, and those processes have to be consistent. When you start to leverage data and start to see the power that you can generate from that insight from those models, when you start to miss that consistency, there's an opportunity for a false positive or a positive negative. So you start to make decisions that can really impact your firm if you don't have access to that data on a consistent basis. And the final point is people. And if we look at the programs, the processes, and the people are by far the most critical point of that three-legged stool, because once that data comes in, you're confident where it's coming from. You start to put it into some process consistency models, and you have that information. How do you act on it? So the investment in continued training, the investment in continued working with your partners, your brokers, your carriers, your banks, these are partners that want to see you succeed. So what these small middle market firms are realizing is that when we select our partners, it's not just because they can provide a certain line or a certain extension of credit. It's understanding that they can also provide resources to data analytics, because these firms are now helping clients understand there might be a blind spot you should consider. So over the course of the last 12 months or so, that's really where we're seeing an impact of growth is Willis has invested a lot into these analytical techniques and integrating them into our client decision-making models. And other clients simply just aren't realizing the power that partners can have. So small, middle market, and large firms investing in those programs, those processes, and those people, both internally and partnerships, really results in some accurate decision-making models.
It's interesting you bring up something that's kind of been a common theme on our podcast, which is the importance of the people in the industry. Somebody has to analyze that data. Somebody has to make sense of those models. So it's not only just the infrastructure, there also has to be an additional commitment there to capturing and utilizing that data in a way that somebody hasn't done before. And kind of if you maybe could elaborate a little bit there, how are you guys seeing that play out?
It's evolving. We're seeing some legacy firms in the marketplace that are trying to invest into those people, but looking to see where they get their training, where they get their education. Again, some of the small middle market firms, the agility has them be able to look at their resource of data, which isn't as large as some others, and start to make some inferences out of that, which are pretty interesting. So we're seeing that for years, construction firms were construction firms. They build buildings, and they do that great. They're the ones that build America. They're the ones that build this country. And over the years, construction firms started to realize that, well, maybe we can get a little bit more critical in how we pursue projects, looking at contract terms and conditions. And then understanding that, well, maybe we should look at how other partners can participate in the success of our projects. Construction firms invested for a number of years, specifically in their operational employees, which is how they build buildings. Now they're realizing that the additional investment in those operational employees is having them understand what data can bring to that bid, to that questionable sub. Maybe there's something that our analytics team can identify. Maybe that sub is having some payment issues. Maybe we can help them pull them along in this project. Maybe they're having problems accessing some certain supplies or understanding how to utilize certain delivery methods with building information or other. So we're starting to understand how we can collaboratively work with our partners to, as a whole, build buildings in a more efficient, safer, and more productive manner. So it's really evolved to the point now where, like the buildings you see behind me, that was an incredible team effort, not just with the construction firm, but with the bank, with their carriers, with their brokers, with their operational teams. It really does take a much more comprehensive team to build buildings today than it did in the past.
Yeah, Adam, to me, and listening to this, it's so true. And I think that if I'm sitting here trying to play devil's advocate, certainly there could be some of the smaller to mid-sized firms who are going to sit there and go, well, that's great for the big guys, and they've got the resources and the capital to be able to invest that way. But as you mentioned, which I found interesting, those smaller to mid-sized contractors, the key word being agility, right? And they have the ability to react quickly and to make the adjustments. And so how are you seeing that? If you could give us an example, what is that agility and how is that allowing them to perform at a higher level?
Absolutely. One contractor comes to mind that we're having discussions with on the East Coast. They are a middle market general contractor, and they were actually competing against some much larger international firms on a fairly sizable university project. Part of that RFP was to show the experience of understanding the local market and understanding trends in the local market. That middle-sized GC was able to pivot and really get information on the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing trends within that market. Whereas these larger national firms eventually could most likely get that information through some of their resources. The middle market firm was much more agile in delivering those trends that the owner was just wondering about. With that, the owner was able to see that this middle-sized firm had the resources, had that institutional knowledge to really move quick when issues might occur in that region. And we were very lucky to also be a part of that pursuit. and they leveraged our team to understand what we saw as well, not just from a regionality standpoint, but other aspects that could potentially impact that market. And that was really just a convergence like we're talking about today, looking at the data that they had on their books, looking at the data that we had access to. We're also working with other technology firms to understand what they're seeing. So it is a collaborative approach. When owners are understand or questioning, how can you respond in times of uncertainty? Small, middle, and larger contractors do leverage resources to show that owner, we might not have the answers today, but we have access to those answers. And collaboratively, we are going to build this opportunity so that we can do it in the most accurate manner possible. So it's timely discussion because it is fresh on my mind, and they're no doubt going to do an amazing job on that project.
And it's interesting, that example you gave, Adam, because it's I think exemplary of the fact that sometimes the most impactful tool or process is not necessarily the big flashy software package you're buying off the shelf from somebody, but it's something that's really highly effective. And I think that was a great example. With that in mind, where do you see the industry sort of struggling with that technology? And is it people without scalability trying to do too much too fast, or what are the big issues you guys are trying to alleviate?
The biggest, from my standpoint, is just the flood of information that we have. And with some firms, we have a very concerted effort to move with data. They want to make sure that they're utilizing the right information, but haven't done it in the past. So when they take that first foray into utilizing data to make more informed decisions, there's still a little apprehension to see how it can really impact their decisions. It's been a very interesting change. But once we do have technology, which is known as a proof of concept, but once we have that proof of impact of how data can really help them pursue projects, they start to realize that it's almost as if a light bulb goes off and they say, my goodness, what if we use this on the project prior that we had some questions on? And how can we use this on our next project? So it's really the flood of data too. We have some firms, and I've dealt with some questions on, there's so much data out there. Which ones do we focus on? And that's really a collaborative effort as well, to really quell that information down and really reduce a lot of that outside noise that could lead to other potential decisions, but not necessarily impactful to the one that we're trying to accomplish today. So there is that level set, if you will, of understanding where the information is coming from, understanding the accuracy of that information, and really understanding why. Why are we doing this? Is it to make a decision on a project? Is it to make a decision on a program and insurance coverage? Is it to make a decision that can help us today or in the future? So twofold. Some are really starting to get into understanding how data can impact their decisions, and others have gone to the point where they don't have the resources to really look at that data to see what is specific to their process. So
still got to have those people, right?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that's the most critical point. And it's been interesting. When I started, my number one goal was to make sure that every firm had a chief risk officer. I think that risk needs to sit at the table of every decision-making process for that organization. Now I look and I say, next to that chief risk officer, I think there should be a chief data officer, because it's not just chief financial, chief operating, chief executive. They're very important in that overall operational pursuit. But risk and data has always been there. It's just we're realizing the impacts that it can have.
Yeah, excellent, Adam. I mean, it's refreshing to hear you talk about these things. You're so eloquent on these topics. And I think can be difficult for people at times, right? There's a lot to know, but you're able to put a fine point on that. So with that, we always like to ask our guests, for 3 takeaways, right? If you were someone listening to the episode and there was 3 big things that you would want them to walk away with from today, what do you think those would be?
Well, I've had some time to think about this, and there's a lot. But if I was going to focus on really a top three, it's access to accurate data. It's by far it's critical to ensure insightful risk management in today's market. So take some time, look at where your data is coming from. Is it accurate? Do you need additional resources? Again, leverage your partners. Your partners want to see you succeed more than anything. Evolving technology. And technology, as we sit here today, I'm sure there's a new technology that's being released in beta form. Construction, as we talked about, Chris, it historically has been slow to adopt, but there are so many areas that can be increased efficiently through the use of technology. So evolving technology will only continue to expand the universe of what data we have access to. So be open to that. Some of it might be for you, some of it might not be for you. But also always appreciate that evolving technology can help you increase your efficiencies. And then lastly, the leading contractors, the agile, the evolving contractors and brokers and carriers are investing in those three core components that we talked about. And that is processes, the programs, and the people. Make sure in whichever facet you want. If it's the programs, you got to make sure you understand where that data is coming from. Processes, make sure they're consistent. Embed them into your standard operating procedures. Embed them into your training and onboarding. But finally, that people component. Those are the ones that are going to be able to have access to that timely data that you need as an organization to make the most informed decisions.
Great takeaways. One other thing, not to keep hitting you up for this, but we also do like to provide an action item. So if I'm a GC or a broker or a carrier and I'm listening to this today, I'm thinking, all right, how do I implement this, right? Where's my first step? What would you advise as that first thing that they could start to look towards to better implement these tools?
Well, I've taken some time to look at this, and and I have three elements that I think would be paramount to achieving success, and in no particular order. I think that first off, explore how your firm is leveraging your data and how it can be evolved to generate more quantitative analytics. And when I utilize the definition of quantitative analytics, we're trying to quantify where that risk is and how it can impact our organization. It's a very focused pursuit, but look at how your firm is currently leveraging that data. The second point is, we've talked about it a few times on this call already, is to look at your partners. Engage your partners to see how they're managing data and how they can help deliver it to your processes. Again, banks have the trends and information in data, bankruptcy trends and potential issues, concerns in certain market areas. Carriers do, brokers do. These are your key partner relationships that you should leverage to ensure that they have the resources to help you grow as well. And then also, identify other sources of market data that might help you in conjunction with what you're already doing, with what your partners can do. Maybe look at some open market information. Census.gov has some good resources on market trends, supply material trends, labor trends. Dodge Data and Analytics provides some good information as well. OECD, looking at global consumption of materials, commodities as well. All of these and many more, there's many more that we utilize. There's just a couple of them, but they have certain elements that can help you in this decision-making process.
It gets back to that point, a little bit of leveling the playing field with some of those smaller firms and more agile firms having access to that information that maybe they traditionally didn't have. And you raise an interesting point, Adam, that, when they have access to that information, it just opens up a world of decision making that, it's kind of taking the blinders off to some degree, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really the chief pursuit of all of this. It's to allow more clarity in the direction your firm is going. Risk continues to evolve. We didn't have the same risk today that we had even 12 months ago. And to be sure, 12 months from now, we're going to have new risks. And that's why we need to take those blinders off. We need to be able to more readily predict and, again, skate to where the puck's going to be. Right. That's our chief concern here at Willis. That's what we do with our clients. we want to eliminate that obfuscation. It's a fancy Latin term that says, which is eliminate the ambiguity of the scenario. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. That's our chief focus, especially in the default insurance group here, but also throughout our entire Willis organization.
That's a great purpose and message for us to kind of to start to end on. But before we wrap it up, we do like to hit our guests with a couple of rapid fire questions before we let them off the hook. So just real quick, what's your biggest challenge at work right now?
Without a doubt, it has just been the growth over the last 12 months. We were part of a much publicized potential merger, and we came through that at the end of last year, beginning of this year, actually stronger and more well-funded than we've been. And with that, it's brought more certainty to our organization. And a lot of clients, both existing clients and new clients, are looking for access to analytics, access to the Willis organization. So without a doubt, it has been the growth. We've got some amazing clients and we've got some amazing prospects that we're talking to. But the biggest challenge is just dealing with that market growth. But we're ready, we're prepared for it, and we're excited for it.
Awesome. And what are you seeing today that really gets you energized about your work at Willis Towers Watson, or the industry as a whole, or both?
It goes back to that with the non-merger. We are now have a ton more clarity, and we're able to invest in new programs, new resources. We're adding to our team here right now. We're the largest brokerage that's specific to default insurance group, and we're continuing to add platforms for our use, for our clients' use. We're adding new resources to ensure that policy terms and conditions are accurate for each program. But I'm just energized about heading off that risk that's coming forward. To me, there's that opportunity to identify something that others haven't. And I think that access to data is that ability to fit that final puzzle piece into a growing fabric of what it is we all try to accomplish. So I'm energized about identifying the next risk, helping our clients prepare for it, and ensuring that for years to come, they continue to have profitable and safe projects that they work on.
Well, this is a little bit more of a fun one, Adam, but other than the fact that you know more than one Wayne Gretzky quote about, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, what's something that our listeners may be surprised to hear about you?
Well, it might be a surprise, it might not be a surprise, but I'm constantly utilizing my analytics, and I bring that to everything I do professionally as well as within my hobbies. I bring it to, I'm an avid fly fisherman, and some of my friends will look at me taking water temperatures, scening the river to understand where in the water column the fish are feeding. I bring it to fly fishing, my skiing. I coaching my kiddos' softball teams, but I also bring a lot of that to my final pursuit, which is lavender farming. I actually have an opportunity here in Colorado to have a small lavender operation, but all of those I bring an extensive amount of reading, analytics, and trying to ensure that the best outcome is possible.
That's excellent. Yeah, I'm sure there are some fishermen out there who may be hitting you up for some data and some analytics on why the fish aren't biting. But one last thing, Adam, before we let you go. Again, this is the Building Bite, and it's BIM insurance technology with the experts. You are today's expert. We do like to ask our guests, what are you taking a bite out of today? I recently went to Colorado. There's some good food out there. So I'm wondering, where's that number one spot for you?
So without a doubt, and I put a lot of thought into this as well, there's some tremendous places to eat all throughout the state. But without a doubt, I'm going right downtown in Boulder and taking a big old bite out of a bonfire burrito.
Bonfire burrito. Okay.
If something to be said for that. There's a lot of good Mexican food and a lot of good burritos in Colorado.
But definitely, if you come out here, bonfire burrito and Golden, you won't be disappointed.
Very cool. Well, Adam, thank you for chatting with us today. If listeners want to hook up with you for business or fishing tips or all the above, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Adam Denno at LinkedIn. They can find me at adam.denno at willistowerswatson.com. And throughout my experience, there's a few other avenues to get in touch with me.
Well, Adam, thank you again. We certainly appreciate your time today and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again, guys, and I appreciate the time to speak to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Building Bite. This podcast has been brought to you by Proactive. Check us out on thebuildingbite.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media for all future The Building Bite news and updates. You can also find us on your favorite apps, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Amazon. If you have ideas for episode topics that we should cover on the show, or you know somebody who would be a perfect guest, let us know at connect@thebuildingbite.com.